Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to our Impact Storytelling 101 roundtable. We have a lovely day and a lovely night in many parts of the world. Thank you for joining us today to have this conversation about what storytelling is, how it has impacted our lives as communicators, and how can it impact you in your career wherever you are in any context and activity. Today we have Ashitha Nayak with us. She's from India. She's an engineer and she's a communicator and blog founder who I'm working with. I'm very honored to meet her as well. We have Aamina Green and Claudia Patino. We will introduce them later on. They are very dear guests who will be helping us to explore this concept of storytelling. So thank you so much for joining in. We will now introduce ourselves with Ashi.
Absolutely. Great. So thank you, Kami. Thank you for kicking us off. It's lovely to be here. I think before we begin the session, we definitely wanted to take a minute to talk about the Melton Foundation, because all four of us, Kami, myself, Claudia, and Aamina, what we have in common is that we're all Melton Fellows. So the Melton Foundation is a 30-year-old organization. For 30 years, the Melton Foundation has been a leading proponent of global citizenship. The Melton Foundation takes pride in the fact that the organization works on molding change makers and problem solvers and global citizens. And how they do that, or how we do that, is we offer fellowships to young change agents from 6 major world regions, including China, Chile, Germany, Ghana, India, and the United States. Kami, myself, Claudia, and Aamina, as I said, we joined as Melton Fellows many years ago, and we completed our Melton Fellowship and are now senior fellows of this amazing organization. And the Melton Foundation uses the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals as sort of a framework or a guiding principle for all our activities, engagements, and opportunities that we offer to our fellows, as well as our partner organizations or any individuals in any communities we touch. So the MF, as we dearly like to call it, is what has brought us all together today. It's what has inspired Kami and I to start our own Storytelling for Change project and organization. And we just wanted to take a minute to give ode to this incredible organization, to everyone that's watching at the World Unity Week. So yeah, with that, I think we're ready to start off today. So back to you, Kami.
Yes, so this was like the first step, the welcoming mat to who we are and where we come from, right? This is the Melton Foundation. As Ashi said, we're all part of it. And this is basically what brought us together and the reason why we're here, sharing with you about these important topics and how we can be influenced positively to make change in the world. So with this being said, I am very honored to meet you all. Thank you for watching. I'm Camila Huecho, and I will be the host today. I'm a freelance illustrator and a journalist from Chile. And I worked as a communicator from the Melton Foundation and for many, many other digital media. And I had, together with Ashi, the idea to host this event because we often misunderstand the power of storytelling, and we go blind about how useful it can be in our daily lives, and also as storytellers and as communicators in our careers. All of us here are communicators, so if you are one, please join the conversation. I'm sorry. And so as you can see, well, my first word over here is that I'm an illustrator. That is kind of my drive, and that's kind of my vocation. So I love to draw, and the first storytelling I ever knew were these things. This was storytelling for me as a kid, and this is what I grew up with. Just telling stories, you know, and reaching people through emotions and through sentiments, and telling stories that you could be represented by. But this is just these are all cartoons, and this is what I grew up with. And as I grew up and entered the Melton Foundation, for example, or I started approaching storytelling from a more human and more professional approach, I started to notice, especially when in contact with the Melton Foundation, that there was so much more potential to influence the world and so much potential to push people into action. And that was pretty incredible to me to realize that there was more to storytelling than just a magical word of cartoons or just stories that you could hold into your heart, right? It was actually something that would tangibly connect me to other people and tangibly connect me to the things that I could do better for the world. This is our world of experience, and each different people has their own story. And this is something that I got to realize when I entered the foundation, and realized just how many people that were different from me were around the world, ready to share their stories, or with stories that they didn't know that they had to share. And that is pretty magical to me. So then I met this wonderful person that is here with me today as well, which is Ashi. Ashi is a dear friend of mine from the Melton Foundation. I met her as a communicator. Ashi, can you briefly present yourself over here?
Yes, definitely, definitely. Thank you, Kami, for those kind words. You've given a very modest introduction of yourself, I must say. Kami has the best work ethic of anyone I know, and she's easily the most creative person I know. So it's an honor to be working with you as well and to be a part of this panel. I'm part of the Melton Foundation as the head of communications. I started as a Melton Fellow and now work on the executive office. I fell in love with storytelling too at a very young age. I think that for me, storytelling was a gateway into living experiences that I can't experience personally. Storytelling was a way for me to identify someone else's story, someone else's experience, someone else's journey by putting myself in their shoes, and words were able to do that. And for me, that was magical. How can some words on a piece of paper transport me to a different place? So I think when I was around 18 years old, I decided to take this passion of mine and do something with it, and started a Storytelling for Change blog, where I got to tell stories from all over the world about racism, about LGBT rights, about colorism, about poverty, inequality. And each of these stories and each of these interviewees trusted me with their life story. And for me, that was incredible. And then more and more people started reading these stories and really identifying with them. And through that, I think I somehow decided that this is what I want to dedicate my life to. I want to be in communications. I want to be in storytelling. And only recently, Kami and I have been talking, and we decided to make something out of this and decided to start a nonprofit media venture called Lighthouse, which is also a Melton Foundation project. Without the MF, we wouldn't have been here. And today we're taking this time to really talk about impact storytelling and why we believe that stories can actually produce impact. So that's my introduction right there. And thank you so much, Kami, for, yeah, back to you.
Thank you so much, Ashi. Yes, as Ashi said, well, we met each other through the Melton Foundation, right? So this is basically what happened. Like, okay, we should build something. Like, we're so passionate about it, and not only passionate, but we could learn more about it. And so Lighthouse was born. And as Ashi said, Lighthouse is a media publication that we want to create and that we're on our way to create. But to connect people across borders to tell their stories about the same topics and just connect to the wider reality of what our problems are, our issues are, our conflicts are, through a more human, empathetic, and connected way. We just want to explore different issues and different problems through the views of other people in the most tolerant and empathetic way that we can. However, there is more to this, as many of you may know as well, than just to tell a story. It is hard to tell a story from other people's perspective because it is just not our own. And also putting yourself in others' shoes is also pretty hard when the other person is on the other side of the world, for instance. And for this, connectivity and internet and all these technologies are pretty useful. But here, we also need to make some upgrades and some changes. And so on, this also happened. Like, we need to learn how to do this properly. We need to learn how to do this respectfully. And we need to approach people with the right mindset and technically learn how to do it better as well. How do you tell another person's story? How do you tell yours in the most uh, tolerant, empathetic, in the most trustworthy way? We need help for this. and so on. We just asked ourselves this question, and this is why we're stepping up to learn and talk more about this with our friends over here in this workshop today, and also with you joining us today from Facebook Live and also in this Zoom room as well. So for this workshop, we have joined in conversation with Aamina and Claudia, who we want you to meet as well. So here's Claudia first. Claudia, if you can briefly introduce yourself over here.
Yes. Hello, everyone. First, I'm really happy that you invited me today. It's been a long time since I have seen you all, so I'm really excited. Like Cami said before, I am also a Melton Fellow since 2013. I am also a journalist, just like Cami. We studied at the same university in Temuco in the south of Chile. After graduating from journalism, I work for a newspaper in Temuco, in Temuco, Chile. And through that job, I think through that job, I got to really understand the power of storytelling. Right now, I am in South Korea. I came through a scholarship from the Korean government. I am studying Korean and currently as well preparing to start my master's degree in international relations, which I will start in September. So yeah, I'm really excited. Just like you two girls, Cami and Ashita, storytelling is a big part of my life. It has been mostly linked, connected to my work. However, storytelling is a lot of emotion, a lot of feelings. So of course, it cannot only be only about my job. So yeah, I'm really excited. Today I will be focusing on how storytelling works from journalism, which I think will be very interesting for all of you to learn.
Thank you so much, Claudia. Yes, thank you so much for being here as well. And it's been such a long time. Yes, we're all like longtime friends over here. And next, our next guest is our dear Aamina. Aamina, if you can briefly introduce yourself over here.
Hi, I'm Aamina. I am a Melton Fellow from the batch of 2014, so I joined with Claudia. I graduated with a bachelor's in film from Dillard University, and then I immediately went to my master's program at the City College of New York in film production. And that was one of the best experiences of my life because I thought I knew film, but as soon as I went to that university, they were like, oh, you know nothing. And that's really true with storytelling. You may have a clear idea. You may feel like you're an excellent writer or an excellent filmmaker or an excellent illustrator, but there's always so much more to learn, not only about the craft itself, but the people that you display in the story. So I have a big love of storytelling as well. It's been a part of my life in many different forms, whether it be writing or drawing, or now currently in film, which I'm working on. And I am making a social justice series with St. Edward Catholic Church, where we are speaking to different people, members of the clergy, and just getting their opinion on current events.
This is wonderful. Thank you, Aamina, for your introduction. And as you well said, there's just so much to learn, and the things that you can learn never end, really, because this is about connecting to people, and this is about just knowing how to tell stories from around the world. And this is too big for us to cover always. This is about connecting and constantly being able to manage emotions through the art of telling a story. And this is why this is so complicated, I think. And this is why we also hosted this workshop, not only for us to just share the knowledge, but to also like find new knowledge and find new opinions and just learn more from just being here, right? Just being in conversation. So with this being said as well, we can start exploring the concept of storytelling and what it is, right? So what I understand from storytelling is telling a story in its most basic way, right? But it's about the art of embellishing and connecting to people through emotions and sentiment and experiences, because we're essentially all human, right? And whatever we happen to experience, I think we should be aware that we are never the only ones in the world, but as well, our experience is also unique. So it is very weird and I'm sorry, and complicated. So yeah, I am just full of questions about how did storytelling also take a step, because now it is its own concept as well. You don't say storytelling for everything. You just don't call storytelling any piece of article. So I just wanted to explore the concept with these questions as well. What do you think that makes storytelling a powerful vehicle for communication? What is it exactly that hits you? What is its main characteristic that you think made it so powerful nowadays, especially in this era of internet and global connection? You can open your mics here. Let's just start diving into the topic.
It's quite a big question. But I thought about this before, and here in Korea, I'm studying Korean with a very diverse group of people, people from all over the world, basically, everyone from really different cultures. So it's we always have many questions to each other. And whenever in the morning when we go to take the bus to get to university, I meet everyone, and we usually ask to each other, even though we met the day before, we ask, how was your day? How was your afternoon? How was your night? How was your morning? And we do this because we're looking for stories. So that's like the most basic thing, but we always do it. It's not just curiosity. It's a little bit of curiosity, of course, but it also comes from the need that we have to look for details to connect with other people. It doesn't matter from where that person is. It's another culture, someone really different from you. You still ask, how was your day? Because you're looking for a way to connect with that person. And that is why storytelling is so powerful, because it presents you a way in which you can connect with someone who's really different from you.
Yeah, you're right.
That's such a beautiful point. I know the question on the screen is what makes storytelling a powerful vehicle of communication, and I should be answering that. I'd like to answer that question with a question, right? I want to ask all our viewers and also my three amazing co-panelists. When you were a child, when you were given a piece of statistic, when you were told that violence in our neighborhood has increased by 20%, is that something you would remember? Or if someone came up to you and trusted you and told you, I've been a victim of violence, and this is what I did to combat it. This is what I think that we as a society should do to combat it. Which of the two are we more likely to remember? The statistic, as well as the story of the victim, do the same thing. They inform you about violence in society. But storytelling, when that victim of violence trusted you and told you about their experience and their story, that's what makes it so incredibly powerful and almost magical. Because a statistic can remain a statistic, and I think that if we take that example and apply it to anywhere in life, it holds. Whether it's a joyous occasion, whether it's a sad occasion, whether it's activism, whether it's actual incremental social impact, it's these personal recountances of what happens to people that makes other people want to stand up and take notice or want to sit up and listen. So I think that in itself, in its very basic core form, that's what makes storytelling so powerful, because it's another person trusting you with a part of themselves, which no other form of communication, no other form of information dissemination allows for that, other than someone just trusting you with their story. So I think in very basic words, it's the fact that another person is trusting you with a piece of themselves. That's what makes storytelling so incredibly powerful.
I completely agree. That was beautifully said, Ashitha. Another thing that I think about, just to piggyback off of the amazing explanation that you just said, was that with storytelling, we also get the opportunity to see the human parts of the people that we're learning about. So not only do we get to see how the world has affected them, but you get to see just the regular things that happen in their lives. So we get to learn about their families, their family dynamics. We get to learn about the things that they like, their fears, their hopes, all of the things that they want out of life. And therefore, when those stories happen, or those points in their lives happen that they are sharing with us, we get the opportunity to see ourselves in them. So, for example, I was at lunch with a friend and we were talking about this show that we watch. It's called Kim's Convenience. It's a comedy about a Korean family, a Korean Canadian family. And my friend, who is also African American, is like, I don't know anything about being Canadian. I don't know anything about being Korean. I don't know about anything about being a first generation immigrant, but I know about having a sister who covers for me whenever I make mistakes, or I know what it's like to have parents with high expectations of me and feeling like I can't live up to it. And those are humanizing things that connects us as people, that I may not know what it's like to be from your country or your culture or from any type of demographic that you belong to, but I know what it's like to have a sibling. I know what it's like to have a parent with high expectations, and therefore we're able to see ourselves in you.
Yes, yes. I want to piggyback on something that you, Aamina, said, is that it connects us to the human part of the people around us. And that is a very curious phrase to say, right? Like, we're human, we're people, but we most often don't connect to the human part of each other. And as much as the human experience is the one thing that can truly connect us to other people, and that truly makes us remember experience, and that truly makes us be a community and a group, and the thing that we need to survive as a community, it is something that you lack, right? Connecting and seeing the human part of each other. I find that phrase really, really curious. I'm gonna stick with it. And also going on with the next question, which I think very well connects to this that you said, is how does this practice of storytelling then intervene in what we think about our world? Because again, as much as we don't stay with the statistics, right, with the hard numbers that Ashi said that don't connect us really just as much as the human experience, that is the thing that people most often stay with anyway, like the stereotype, the number, the imagine, like the image of the people around us being something very generalized. So how can we use, or how does storytelling intervene in this image, and how do you think you've used it as well? How do you think it has happened in your life?
In my case, from journalism, when I worked at a newspaper, the part when I had to do some storytelling was my favorite part. Usually, in whatever topic it was, I had to interview different people for one article. And sometimes it was official authorities and that kind of stuff, but also for the same article, general public, general people I had to interview. For authorities, it was usually numbers, statistics, facts, the like mostly plain stuff. But for the people, I didn't look for those. We have to, as journalists, as communicators, we have to look for the emotion. So whenever you're writing a piece of an article or whatever kind of journalism you're doing, that part is so important because that is the way to connect with people. So in that way, storytelling really shapes how someone can see can feel about certain topic, because they can connect with the experience of somebody else.
Yes, exactly. This can lead also. I mean, I'm sorry, do you want to add?
Oh, you can go with your thought.
Oh, yes.
I'll something after you.
yeah, I was gonna say, well, I'm a journalist as well. So yeah, it is so easy to fall into this sensational approach when you're doing journalism, right? And
Yeah.
you have to be very careful to that. There's a fine line that you don't need to cross, because you need emotion to connect to people. You need emotion for people to remember what you're saying. But you also can fall into the whole condescending thing, into the whole glorification of some things, of some people. And we need to be very careful about it. And it's always such a thin line to cross, that some people who are beginning at journalism also get so confused on, did I cross it, did I not? So yes, like it's so easy to influence people. I don't know, I mean, if you wanted to add something as well to this.
Yes. So for me with film, one of the things that I recognized is sometimes people may not have an idea of a certain demographic at all.
Mhm.
So whenever you are storytelling, at moments, there may be times where you are bringing a group that someone may not be aware of. Either they live in a homogenous region, or the certain group isn't something that people experience in their countries or in their neighborhoods, or in their families. And that's where the power comes. I mean, that's one of the big powers of storytelling, where you could be introducing a certain person or a certain group to either broaden their minds, or make it a little more, not smaller, but less accepting.
Mm,
So it really depends on how you do it.
exactly, exactly, yes. It really comes with a much bigger responsibility, I think, when you're a person of influence, uh, which is a factor, I think, right? Whether it's an organization or media you're representing, whether you're your own public person or an individual representing your own values. I mean, the reach that you can have and the influence and how people look at you at the same time as well. Like, it doesn't depend only on how you portray a story, but rather what image you portray as a communicator can also affect the message and can also affect the way that people internalize what you want to say, right? And I don't know if any of the people joining us today want to add to this, or maybe ask a question to our guests or the people here.
Absolutely. I
Is
think
there?
viewers are on live stream, so if we get any questions in the comments, then we can.
Oh, yeah, perfect, excellent. So coming from this and how storytelling can so deeply affect the way we view the world around us, do you have any experiences of this, like the dark side of storytelling, the way that it can no longer improve the world around us, but rather do harm? Because I think there are experiences like that as well.
There
Come
Aamina,
on.
go ahead.
there are a few, not a few, there are many debates in the United States that have been, I guess you could say, led by storytelling. And unfortunately, there have been people who haven't used storytelling responsibly. Leading up to this, to the debates that are happening in the United States, and then with the debates now. So, for example, there's this trope in film and also in writing of the angry Black man, where it's just, if a Black man, if you say the wrong thing to the Black man, he'll go to your house and he'll kill you. And it's unfortunate that that has been something that hasn't been, not only with sorry, my words are escaping me. Not only has this trope been in existence, in the more contemporary times, but this has been something that's been happening since Birth of a Nation. Birth of a Nation is a film that was created by the KKK, which was about in lack of better words, a feral Black man who was trying to rape this white woman. And it was a piece of propaganda created by the KKK, which promoted lynching. for Black men, because they were like, oh, well, it's our duty to kill these Black men because they're trying to come after our women. And this is a trope that's unfortunately has been evolving in many different ways. And now you can see things that's been happening with not only policemen, but with, you know, regular human beings who feel like they have a duty to police Black and brown bodies. And it depends on the person who's speaking. Like you said, if the person has influence, that can change so many things in other people's lives. Like whenever the former president, Donald Trump, he said the Kung flu and the China virus and things like that. And that's led to so many different hate crimes with the Asian American and Pacific Islander communities, where people, because of this vehicle that's been used, the vehicle of journalism, the vehicles of film, all of those things, which makes people think, I'm doing my duty. These people are hurting me. I'm doing my duty. And that's the problem. If you don't use storytelling in a responsible way, you can be affecting people's lives negatively.
Right. Absolutely. I think I just want to add a small thing to what Aamina said. Storytelling can become harmful when the storyteller includes his or her bias to the story. I think as storytellers, and journalists, it's really our responsibility to make sure that our bias is not affecting the story. That's what's lacking in news today. News and storytelling of every kind is so polarized that even before someone opens their mouth, you know, if this channel is on, this is the kind of messaging, this is the narrative I'm going to get, you know. So, and it's true for everywhere in the world. So I think that to answer your question, Kami, of can storytelling create harmful change? Yes, it can, if the storyteller lets his or her bias affect the story. I think that every story can be told in two different lights, in two different sides. Every story does have two sides. It's really about what the storyteller chooses to focus on. And that should, you know, tell us as storytellers and everybody who's watching as well, the immense amount of responsibility it puts on us. I just want to quote this small example. In 2016, I did a story, and this was before Section 377 was passed in India, which Section 377 decriminalized being gay or lesbian or bisexual in India. And before the law was passed, I remember doing a story about an anonymous story about an LGBT friend of mine. And this other reader who read that story used that story to come out to his family, and then wrote me a very long email talking about how that story helped him come to his family, and not because of, you know, not because of the fact that it was just any other LGBT story. He really, really was able to connect to how it was told, how it was narrated. And I think that is a huge factor, and it puts responsibility on us as storytellers and journalists and communicators to remove our bias from the stories we tell, and hence, you know, prevent propaganda or prevent harm.
Exactly.
I agree with what everyone has said, especially with Ashita about one-sided story. And just in that sense, I'd like to add that whenever you're writing a story, I think it's necessary not only to focus on the subject, on the person you're writing about, but also about the context that they are in, which kind of environment they are in. Like, if you're writing about them, you have to become an expert in like whatever context that person is in, whatever they are going through, like all the issues around them. That's really important. And also, what I think it's extremely important as well is not to expose a person when it's not necessary. Like, this is something that journalists do so many times. Like for example, you can see it very clearly in television and visual storytelling. Whenever there's someone crying, maybe that's not always necessary. Like, if you want to use that image, you have to make sure to please first ask the person, like get the consent for showing that kind of image. And it also happens in written journalism, like the person is opening a part of their lives to you, is basically trusting their story to you. So as a writer, you have to honor that. That's really important.
That is true. There are so lines that you should not cross in order to aim for a good result with your storytelling and aim for positive change, especially because we're dealing with people that just like us have fears and have hopes also. And not only we influence the audience we want to reach, but we also influence the people that we want to interview, for instance, or to connect to. It also happens that when you're a communicator, not only a journalist, I mean, in general, when you're a communicator, especially in Chile, it happens that we have crossed the line of sensationalism so much that people sometimes, certain communities don't even trust the communicators. Like, oh, here they come to interview us, here they come to see us cry, here they come to like the fake news thing and the untrustworthy media trope as well. Like, and it is so hard to also overcome that. It depends on, again, like I said, like it depends also on how people view you. It depends on how people view you to realize just what kind of outcome you can have and what kind of content you can get to and how far you can reach. And that all together just makes storytelling such a complex thing to do and such a dangerous, sometimes even thing to tackle. But when you do get a positive outcome, when you do get a story that you can really use to create change, just I want to think for a bit on how change happens. So with storytelling, where does change happen? When you're watching TV, when you're organizing an activist movement, where does change spark first? At value, behavioral, community, and macro level? And how have you seen it develop along your career? It's just,
I feel like it's, oh no, go ahead.
No, go first.
Something that I've noticed is that it's more of a domino effect where, you know, storytelling can affect the value to the behavior, to the community, to the macro, and it's just one after the other. And I'm still starting out with film and different forms of communication, but I know of this amazing story of this play called The Exonerated, and it was a play about 6 different individuals, like real life individuals who were exonerated and for when they were on death row for crimes that they didn't commit. And this play was performed in 2001 for the former governor of Illinois. And that led to 167 cases being, people being taken off of death row and their cases being appealed. And the power that 167 lives were saved and they were given a chance to fight another day in court. It's powerful. So whenever storytelling is done correctly, you have the opportunity to affect people who will change their ways, who will affect the people around them and therefore change policies.
yes, it is true. It is so, I think, it's so, I don't know how to say it, like unexpected. You can't expect just how far a story will go. And that's why we need to be so careful with it. Because sometimes you write a story expecting a certain reach, expecting a certain audience to react to it. But there's just so much that can happen, and there's so much change that you can actually spark. I don't know if I can tell. Well, you know that storytelling can happen in various formats, but I don't know. Claudia, maybe you can help me with this. Remember the Las Tesis movement?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So Las Tesis movement was, Las Tesis was a group of women in Chile that created this whole narrative, this dance that was called, do you remember the name? Because I remember the lyrics, but I don't remember the name.
El violador eres tú.
Un violador en tu camino, a rapist
Un
in your
violador en tu
way.
camino.
A rapist in your way. And it was this whole like 1 minute dance, maybe like 30 seconds dance, where they chanted this whole narrative about how the Chilean state and how the Chilean police was abusing the community. And this happened during the social uprising of 2019, around that time, didn't it?
Yes.
So, and this was a dance, and it was literally a dance of them chanting things like, the police abuses me and I can't sleep well because no one is protecting me in this country. And it was this whole narrative that lasted for 30 seconds. And it got so viral. And the funny thing is that these girls had been doing these narratives and these little social stories for a while now, for some years by now. And this one thing put in this specific context with the specific lyrics, giving this specific message in a time where so many cases of police abuse and rape culture was being exposed in Chile, and it just blew up. And we were seeing this girl like dancing all over the world, and all these women dancing in many countries, reflecting and denouncing the rape culture and the gender abuse and the police abuse in each country. And it was just, it hit so hard to realize that this was happening all over the world, in the United States, in India, in European countries as well. I saw it happening in France, in Spain. And it just breaks your heart that this specific story, just because it was being told at a time in which people were so angry and so sad and so anxious about these topics, just blew up in the whole country, and therefore in the whole world as well. And it just happened by a group of women like dancing in the streets, and more women down the street like joining them for protests as well. And you know, it just breaks my heart, you know, but at the same time, it just shows you the power of what just a dance and just phrases, you know, can get you to feel, and how that feeling can also be shared, because this was global at some point.
Yeah, it's extremely powerful. Like Aamina said, it's some kind of domino effect. The fact that this, what Cami described from Las Tesis, from the group, the fact that this happened during Chile's protests, when Chilean people were protesting because of inequality, the fact that that happened then in 2019, and now in 2021, Chile is in the middle of writing a new constitution because of these protests. And that constitution is being written by half men, half women. So of course, there is influence of that storytelling. Like, that is completely amazing.
And
it has so much power.
Like, we started from there, and now we're writing a new constitution. Like, when did this happen?
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's really amazing.
Yeah. So I don't know if anyone wants to say something. I don't know if I saw some hands raising in the chat. I don't know if Ashi?
Yeah, I think.
Are there any questions? Do people want to chime in?
We can keep going, and we can take questions maybe at the end.
Oh, okay, perfect. So following on this and the stories that we've told, I wanted also to put this question on the table, like about this influence of stories in how we participate in our civic community, right? How can we expect to spark this sense of responsibility in our people? What exactly is it other than emotion that can get us to feel responsible or even guilty about some stuff? Because we do feel guilty sometimes, you know, we can be touched in many ways. But how do you create this sense of community and this sense of being responsible for your community through storytelling? Or if you have any stories about it as well.
Yeah, definitely. I'd like to jump right in. I mean, firstly, I want to say these are amazing questions, and we could keep going about these. At least I can all day long. We have around 15 minutes on the clock before we have to close this session. But
Okay.
I definitely want to take this one up, especially because I think as Melton Fellows, this is very close to all our heart as well, because we're all trying to use the tools at our disposal to create actual grassroots incremental change. So to talk about how stories affect global citizenship or civic participation, or what we can do as storytellers to ensure that happens, I think it's all about what is the call to action to your reader or your viewer. When you're giving someone a story, or when you're telling a story of a particular incident or a particular experience, I think it's also really important, and it's almost your responsibility as a storyteller to be aware of what are some concrete steps that someone can take after reading this story. So what I like to do in my stories is usually to plug something in there towards the end of the story that will inspire my reader or viewer to take that step. And I think that at the Melton Foundation as well, with all of the stories that we do about all our projects and our fellows doing all these amazing things around the world, we always try to connect it back to our original mission of, did you connect with this story? Is this something that you relate to? Do you feel moved by this cause? Then here's some immediate tangible action that you can take. You know, you can go and do your own act of global citizenship, which is a small civic action that you can do in your community that helps a cause that you're passionate about. Or maybe you can donate to a charity that's working on the cause. Or maybe you can connect back to the interview, the person who's featured in this story, and talk to them about how you can join hands and what you can do. So I think it's really about the storyteller being able to give your audience a sense of direction as to what they can take away from the story and what steps they can take. And it's a very thin line, once again, as I said, because this would have to be done without bias. This would have to be done without it turning into propaganda, like the example that Aamina gave of the KKK, right? And storytelling. They also gave a call to action to their readers and viewers, if you remember. And that was such a destructive call to action. That was such a destructive message. So I think doing it responsibly without allowing your own bias is so important. Usually when I write or tell sensitive stories of racism or of someone's own experience with violence or adversity, I always like to add an epilogue towards the end to my readers or viewers where I just simply say that we are not expecting the world to change after reading this story or watching the story. We're not expecting people to give up grounding principles and beliefs. But what we are expecting is, if this story does present to you opinions that you originally did not agree with, are you open-minded enough to take a step back and question your principles? Are you open-minded enough to use this story to maybe unlearn something and relearn probably the right way to go about it? So I think the responsibility is on storytellers to give our readers calls to actions and a sense of direction as to what they can do from the story.